So I want to start out with how did you first hear Mike's music? Did you hear it live? How did you know about Mike? Not a lot of people do. I'm curious, what was your first interaction with him?
I was in college and it was at a party, and I think he was like a late ad. They had replaced, the band that was supposed to play, and so he was like their band, Heater, was a late ad. I didn't know nothing about it. It was a really cool show. I wasn't really focused on the music at that time. I was learning to do all that, but I remember it being really cool. Again, don't remember much about it, probably a little too much alcohol. But after that, 2 years later or so, when I was eligible to go to bars legally, a bunch of friends piled in a car and we went and saw the guy from Heater, who is now in a new outfit called the Mike Hosty Trio. And just the bar was packed and there was a line out the door and everybody was hitting the dance floor. And I was a huge kind of a classic rock fan, loved the blues at that time of my life, and seeing a band that did that style with a B3 Hammond organ, I didn't even know what that was, and I loved the Booker T and the MGs at that time, so that was just, that really got my, music juices flowing, and it was fun and dancey, and I didn't know how to dance at the time. I kind of credit Mike Hosty for kind of getting me to learn how to dance and forcing me to hit the dance floor, in college. It's not the easiest thing to do, so I just remember it was late 90s, and it was a very impressionable time of my life.
Wow, that's so amazing. Because my only recognition, he came to the Magnolia in Fort Worth, and that's the only time I've ever seen or known Mike. So I'm curious, when you decide to tackle this type of project, what was the first steps? How do you get this off and rolling?
That's a great question. I had seen him it was like a fantasy football draft, and we went out in Tulsa, and hey, Hosty's playing, the duo's going to be playing. We showed up, and he was by himself, and it hit me in the head. I was like, wait, it's a Saturday night. You're by yourself. You're usually with your drummer. And he's like, oh, I'm solo now. And I was like, I want to do a documentary on you. And at the time, I had just became a freelancer, so the timing was perfect for it. And it's something I had thought about for a long time. That would be a really great, person to do a documentary on. I love the idea of doing it on one person. To me, is always intriguing. I always think they end up making the best stories as long as they're somewhat likable, or polarizing or whatever it is, right? So I knew I had a good subject. I knew his talent was perfect for it. He's funny. There's just a lot of things that check boxes in terms of having a compelling story. But then, okay, how am I going to do this with having a freelancer? I'm having to fund this myself. I didn't know how to do crowdfunding or any of that. And all I knew from my background was, I knew how to do interviews. I knew how to shoot them. I knew how to light them. I knew how to, mic them. I could do all the audio. I could do this myself if I really needed to. And so I did. I showed up to a gig in Denton at Dan Silverleaf, November 30th, 2016. Wow. And invited a couple friends to come out and, bring your phones and shoot it if you can. And, I'll be bringing my one camera that I had at the time, FS7, and I shot the gig. And then after that, I said, can I come to your house and interview you? He's like, sure. And then I'll come to the deli and shoot you at the deli. That's the bar in Norman that he plays. That's like his home bar. And so it just kind of steamrolled. Once, it's like starting. You always tell somebody, if you're going to do something you're passionate about, just start. Once you get started, then you're going to start, everything's going to start spreading in terms of the ideas and the possibilities.
I want to harp back onto the notion of him playing solo, because it's not just him and a guitar. The talent level is kind of absurd. It's crazy. Can you talk about what Mike does when he is in that solo state? For certain songs, he's playing. At the time, he's got a harmonica guitar. I mean, there's a lot going on. Can you talk about that transformation, seeing that? I mean, two pieces are one thing, but a solo artist to do that is pretty remarkable.
It's funny. I think about it. The solo, he actually, when he was in a duo, I kind of think rhythm-wise, so in the film, you see him, he's playing the bass with his feet when he's in a duo. And he has a drummer, so he's, in this is early days of having to do, looping and all that stuff. And he was figuring out that was, not a lot of people did all of that even then. People were kind of still working through it. But when you play guitar like that, and you can do so many things with sounds, he was really digging hard into that. So when I see him play bass with his feet, that just blows my mind how the rhythm is so different, than playing guitar. And it's different, it's like
completely opposite.
Yeah, left brain, right brain is completely different. So when I see that, I'm like, I don't know which one's harder. But then you see him by himself. There's nobody in there to feel anything. Like, he's literally doing all of it. And the thing that just always blows my mind is he doesn't rely on loops and triggers when he's solo. He sits there and he plays 3-part drums with his feet. I mean, just the notion of playing a snare drum with your left foot and the hi-hat with your heel, and then the right foot is playing the kick drum. That just try doing that by yourself. Like, that's really difficult to pull off and make it sound like it's in rhythm. And then he's thumbing the bass. Sometimes he'll even flip down and put a fuzz on the bass while he's playing that, and then he just play the rhythm. And then all of a sudden he'll solo and sing at the same time. And that's the stuff that's just like, I don't get that. I don't get how he does it. He says he doesn't really know how he does it, but it's easier when he's doing everything at once as opposed to just doing one thing. Like, he can kind of forget about how difficult it is. The other thing is too, he's not just doing all that. He plays a harmonica, like you said. He's got the kazoo if he wants it. But the lyrics, he doesn't forget lyrics. He writes all of his own songs. I'm like, some of these lyrics are really kind of complicated. He's got a song called "In the Future, All Music Will Be Made by Robots," and he's talking about the invention of the clock in that, and rollers, and like, I don't know how he keeps it all fresh in his head. And then he stops, and all the instruments stop, and he'll see somebody eating like popcorn, and he'll make a joke out of it. And he says he doesn't know how he does it. It just pops in his head.
I'd love to know about the festival circuit for this film, because you've been to some fun festivals with this film, some unique ones, not necessarily film-based. Can you talk about the festival run so far? What it's been like for you?
Yeah, the first one was Phoenix. That was the world premiere. This is the first time I ever had a feature film, first time really having anything in a festival of any kind. I've attended some festivals, but, the nervousness of seeing your film on a big screen. And I remember my girlfriend and I joke about this all the time. She's sitting, this is the world premiere, and Mike Hossie came out to it. And he's sitting to the left of her, and I'm sitting to the right of her, and she could feel our energies. This is a documentary about this guy's life. And so, that was really kind of nerve-wracking. But then when it got done, I just remember they asked me to introduce Mike, because some of the people didn't know he was there, and he got a huge ovation. And he was a rock star, and this is a person who's never sought that out, right? So that was really, I still look back at that as the special moment of him. I think he was just like, wow, these people actually care. And, it was a pretty cool moment for him. And then after the screening, people kept coming up to him and like wanting to take pictures with him. I was like, that's not, that would happen occasionally at a gig, but like there was a line out the door, like people wanting to talk to him and meet him, and, interrupting. We're like having chats over drinks and dinner, and people are coming up to him and wanting to say hi and, appreciated, really enamored with his work. And so, yeah, Phoenix was really special. And then we did the hometown, not the hometown one, but the home state. We did the Dead Center. Yeah. And that was a huge deal. And there was like 200 people there, and the Q&A, I think, went on like 45 minutes. And, just everybody kind of on the inside of all the jokes. So that was cool. We were above the fold in the Sunday Daily Oklahoman, and got a couple like drive time radio interviews, which is, one with my brother who was in Oklahoma radio. That was crazy. Both of our families were there. His brother came up visibly shaken after some of the stuff we discussed with his family. It's in the film, some of the serious stuff. So that was really cool. And then from then, did the two, was able to win Best Feature at Lonely Seal in Boston, and then Best Feature at New Haven Documentary Film Festival, and he came out and played for that. He'd never played the East Coast. That was special. And then since then, we did Lone Star Film Festival. We won the Audience Award there. I mean, it was kind of like 3 in a row. I was like, wow, I'm getting recognized for doing something like this. I was just happy to get into film festivals.
How has this film impacted you personally, and also a relationship with Mike? How how has that grown into whatever it is now?
Relationship with Mike, it was there, but not to the point. I mean, I don't even think I had his number, like we weren't like super tight or anything, but he knows people and comes to his gigs. And I think when I found out that he had heart surgery, that was another element to the whole thing, where that's when I kind of felt like I cared for him, This is before I started filming this. And then, so over time, like one time I showed up to a show, and this was, I think, right after he'd had heart surgery, and he was by himself in Dallas, and he said that, he's like, "Oh, you just got here." I go, "Yeah, I missed your show, man. I just got off work." He's like, "I'll go back up and play a song for you," So that's when I kind of knew he had this side of him that he actually cared about people too. And so that's something I knew he had in him. And when I started developing this film and developing the relationship with him, I mean, it took still 3 or so years before we started getting personal with the family stuff, with his father. That stuff was just. Then he trusted me. So, but it takes years to build up trust with somebody who doesn't really care about being famous or being in the limelight or sharing all their personal life. He'll joke about stuff with his wife and his kid, like on stage, but nothing, too in depth. He's been pretty private. So, it's always nice to be able to call him up and just talk about that kind of stuff. It's not something we talk about much. Most of it, honestly, was through the process of filming it. And then you asked me about what was the other question?
How have you changed because of this?
I don't know if I've changed, but I definitely, I've looked at my career and I'm like, some of it I wish I wouldn't have. I was in sports television for a long time, and I have kind of wondered what would happen if I would have started, doing film instead of TV. But then I know some of these relationships I've built up over the years because of television and some of the knowledge about the TV side of things. I've met a lot of Dallas media and who have been really supportive of this film and helping me get it launched. But personally, I don't know. I don't feel like I've changed any, other than just having to take a step back and look at the work I put in and understanding that I have to, and for anybody, if you're going to do something, you have to start. Yeah. And that's never stopped, with me. But when you're on your own, you're faced, when you're a freelancer and you're faced with these decisions that you're going to make and how are you going to support yourself. That was really difficult. Like, how am I gonna do all this? Do a documentary by yourself, So I guess if you said in a way that could change me, I don't know. I'm very. I have to step back and be proud of what I've, it kind of felt like a one-man band on the film side of it too. And then being able to go in and have confidence in working with John Hunter, my composer, who I think just does an incredible job on this film. Having the confidence that he believed in me enough to score my film, and he's got his name on Academy Award short. He's incredible. And now I kind of got to this different point in my career where I at least have a little confidence that I can do this. I guess would be the long-winded answer to it.
Oh, it's a good long-winded answer.
Sorry.
I'd love to ask about Boston and New Haven.
Yeah.
Their responses to the film. The South, especially the Texas, I mean, even Houston World Fest may understand what Mike's contribution is to that, but the North, I don't know if they know him as well. You know what I mean? Like, what was their response to this film?
I would say there wasn't a ton of people. Well, the New Haven, there was a pretty good appearance, and they helped promote it. There's a different appreciation for music in the Northeast. I would say the biggest appreciation for music in general is in the South and the Northeast. But the Northeast, it's just this fervor about when they see something that hits them over the head. We would love to get him back up here. I mean, it's just really enthusiastic, and those immediate people saying we want him playing here. We think he's amazing, and why doesn't he come up here more often? I'm like, well, he lives in Oklahoma and he doesn't get out of his bubble, and everything I said in the film. But the reaction there was incredible, and obviously winning a couple awards like that when your best feature, did not expect that at all. I was at the Regent Theater, which is like a 107-year-old theater. That was a really special, and they had I think there was the John Lennon It was like a bunch of old artifacts in this movie that was playing there, and people, they really appreciate music. I got kind of a grasp of that, of how that Regent Theater's got some drips with history, and they wanted Mike they were kind of happy that it had screened there, and they want him to be a part of it and want to bring him back. And New Haven was, I think Cafe 9 was where we played in New Haven. The jokes that he would tell that are in the film, I got some responses that I don't get in other audiences, and I'm like, oh, okay, that joke is funny, because after a while some of these jokes aren't landing, or you're like, are they not hearing what I heard when I laughed? And then this audience was a completely different reaction. That was really cool. But yeah, that was, and then now we're working. I'm trying to help him out, book some gigs in the Northeast because of what those screenings.
So cool.
Yeah, and he had never even played in the East Coast.
So I've got to ask then, what is the life for the film after this? Where is it going? And also for you personally, are you any other projects, any other ideas? I mean, I know you're a sports guy, so is there anything down the line for you?
Yeah, for this, because I'm doing everything on it, one thing when you just start off in a project, some of the things you don't think about, like distribution or the money side of it, I'm still going through some of these processes. But I've been in talks with some distribution companies. I've had a couple offers, and there's just some of the fine print I'm still not sure of, and leaning on people that know more about it, and then even meeting people here that say, hey, we might be able to help you out with some of this. And I'm trying not to jump into anything that I'm not sure about, and so I'm taking my time with it. And I've been told, and it makes sense, that music docs have a bit of a longer shelf life than most films, just because of music is kind of forever, really, and some people can appreciate it. And then what I'm working on now, there's a buddy of mine are having a meeting with a radio general manager. We're talking about doing potentially a documentary on it's like a DFW radio thing. We can't talk too much about it, but it's something we've been discussing.
You want to give me a station so I can figure it out personally?
I'm going to stay away from that, because
that may give it away?
Yeah, I would definitely give it away. Yeah, but we don't even know what's going to happen. There might be some parameters, and we don't want to do I don't want to do a fluff piece on anything. I want it to be real. I want to tell both sides of every story.
The moment I push stop, Chris, I'm going to bother you about this, but I totally understand, especially if I think who it is.
Yeah.
Wow. Chris, thanks for the time. Thanks for giving Mike's story this what you've given it, something special, and getting to learn so much about him no one ever would have known if it wasn't for you. So thanks.
Well, thank you, and appreciate the Oxford Film Festival, and this has been such a cool experience, and I've never actually been to Oxford before this, so it got me down here, and like you tell, a huge appreciation for film, and especially music, and the two combined. And then I think maybe we open up some doors for Mike Hosty to come out here soon, hopefully.